Well, we start with breaking news this morning and plane crash horror in Washington, D.C.
Yes, a passenger jet with 64 people on board has crashed into the Potomac River after colliding with a US Army helicopter.
Well, 19 bodies have so far been recovered. The Coast Guard, police, divers, rescue and ambulance units are still at the scene.
US President Donald Trump has been posting on his social media platform Truth Social. He's condemned air traffic control at Reagan National Airport, saying that this is a bad situation that looks like it could have been prevented. It was an absolutely horrific situation, as you can imagine. An extensive search and rescue operation is taking place, but it is below zero in Washington. The Potomac is freezing over, and it is pitch black. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in Washington, D.C.
All right, well, let's get the very latest. They've been holding a news conference in Arlington, Virginia, and this is what officials have had to say.
I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm at Reagan National Airport. I am joined by United States Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, United States Senator Jim Moran, Senator Roger Marshall, Jack Potter, the CEO of the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority. We are here to brief you on the very tragic events of this evening, where we know a passenger plane coming to the airport here collided with a military helicopter. Our fire department, DC Fire and EMS, supported by fire departments and police departments from across the Washington metropolitan region, are executing a rescue operation in the Potomac River. They are working diligently in very dark and cold conditions, cold water, to execute this rescue operation. We have had the opportunity to be briefed by American Airlines officials. I'm told that American Airlines leadership is on the way to Washington as well, and officials are in the airport talking to families now. We do have a 1-800 number where families should contact us, should contact American Airlines for more information, and we will be providing that information shortly. I am going to turn to a number of officials to provide as much information as we can this evening, and we expect to have more frequent briefings at daylight. So with that, I'm going to turn to Secretary Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. I think for all of us, we want to extend our thoughts and prayers to those individuals who were impacted by the events tonight, their families. We know this is a very difficult time for all of them. I want to join the mayor and everyone here to extending our thank you to the first responders who, again, in very difficult situations and environments, are out there searching and attempting a rescue. Tonight, I spoke with President Trump and his team in the Situation Room. I had a conversation with Secretary Pete Hegseth as well, and then with the Kansas delegation and the mayor and others in leadership, as well as Governor Youngkin from Virginia and Governor Kelly from Kansas. From the Department of Transportation and FAA's perspective, we are going to offer full support to those on the ground, to the mayor, but also to the NTSB, who is going to be conducting the investigation in this matter. We are going to provide all the support that's necessary. Mayor.
Thank you. So with that, I want to ask Chief John Donnelly from DC Fire and EMS to provide an update.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Donnelly, Chief of DC Fire and EMS. This evening at 8:48, an alert was sounded, initiating a large regional response to a report of an aircraft crash on approach to the airport. This response includes first the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority's Fire Department, the District of Columbia Fire Department, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the U.S. Park Police to respond into the area and to sort that out. At 8:58, the first units arrived on the scene and found an aircraft in the water and began rescue operations. This incident has grown. There's currently about 300 responders working. We have boats from all throughout the region, police and fire boats. We have a mutual aid agreement in Washington, D.C., the National Capital Region Mutual Aid Agreement administered by the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, and we're all operating under that. We're operating under a unified command. Everybody's together. So we also have requested state police helicopters from Maryland, and the Coast Guard helicopter is working. So this is a state and federal response as well. U.S. Coast Guard's got some boats in the water as well. So it's a highly complex operation. The conditions out there are extremely rough for the responders. It's cold. They're dealing with relatively windy conditions. Wind is hard out on the river, so they're out there working. We're doing everything we can to keep them safe, and with that, I'm going to turn it back to the mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, John Donnelly there, Chief of the Fire and Emergency Services Department in Washington, D.C., outlining what is underway at the moment, which is a rescue operation with more than 300 first responders, the US Coast Guard involved, and describing just how difficult those conditions are. Now, this is still a rescue operation. It's worth saying that about 18 bodies have been recovered so far. Not yet just a recovery operation, but it has to be said, things are looking pretty grim at the moment.
And just a reminder of what we know so far, an American Airlines flight has collided in midair with a US military helicopter. It's just above Reagan National Airport in Washington. They have both crashed into the Potomac River. Freezing conditions, very difficult conditions, as we're hearing. So far, local news, they're reporting at least 19 bodies have been recovered.
Dear me. Let's talk to former advisor to Bill Clinton, Steve Gill, excuse me, Steve, who joins us now. I mean, this is a hugely difficult situation. As we're seeing, a federal response to this as well, which is hugely important.
Yeah, and I've flown in and out of Reagan Airport many, many times, and it is very in close proximity, obviously, to the Capitol. I was there just a week ago for the inauguration, and I'll tell you, it is brutally cold. They're dealing in dark conditions. I think, as was mentioned, the weather is about 42 degrees, outside, but the weather, in the water is about 37 degrees and starting to freeze over. So apparently the military helicopter carrying 3 military personnel collided with this American Airlines flight carrying 60 passengers, 4 crew, in midair as the pilots were being of the helicopter being instructed, can you see the approaching aircraft? Early reports are they may have been looking at another aircraft rather than the one that literally was above them. They could not see that one, and as the two collided, there's some video that shows literally a fireball in the sky.
And the conditions that these rescuers are working in, Steve, as we just heard, are incredibly complex. We just heard they are extremely rough.
Yeah, and as they were mentioning, it's dark and it is windy, and again, on the water, that makes it very difficult. About a half mile or so from the airport. This was in the process of the plane landing at Reagan. It was in its descent, and the helicopter, apparently the training mission that they were on only had 3 military personnel on it. A Black Hawk helicopter normally would carry a full contingent of soldiers or military personnel, but in this case there were only 3 apparently on that particular flight because they were on a training mission.
The president seems to be pointing fingers at air traffic control at Reagan. Do we know if there's what's behind that?
There were instructions coming from the air traffic controllers that have already been revealed, trying to give instruction to the helicopter. There was one warning that there was a flight descending and that they needed to get visual confirmation of that. The second warning to the helicopter came literally seconds before the collision. I think it's too early to determine exactly what happened or who's at fault here. At this point, it's just a horrific tragedy. Reagan is an extremely busy airport. I mean, you've got not only all the military flights, the fact that it is the nation capital, security is at a high. It was extremely high, again, at the inauguration with both helicopter and drone coverage. And then again, the number of flights that are coming in and out. This one was about, I think, 8:45 local time when the collision occurred. So again, that's still a very busy time at this airport as you head into the night.
OK. Steve Gill for now. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you, my friends.
Thank you. Well, let's cross live now to travel expert Simon Calder, who's with us. Good morning to you, Simon. And tell us what we know about Reagan National Airport, because I imagine with its proximity to the White House and to Washington, D.C., there will be procedures designed to keep passenger planes and US Army helicopters apart.
Absolutely. So Washington, D.C., the US capital, has 3 airports. There's Baltimore, Washington, there's the main international airport, Dulles, and then there is Reagan National. Now, what's unusual about Reagan National is that it is actually very close to the city centre. It's just across the Virginia state border, but it's 10 minutes by taxi from downtown Washington. So a really handy. The capital would prefer to use, and it is, as we were just hearing, very busy. There's flights coming in the whole time, and this extraordinary situation where you have a combination of a very busy airport and a political hub, which clearly, very sadly, on 9/11 was the subject of an attack, means that the skies are extremely well patrolled. There are very few. There are, of course, operations involving helicopters, most of which would be kind of presidential or security missions. But as we were just hearing, the air traffic control protocols are extremely strict. Now, we have seen in the same Potomac River in 1982, there was a crash involving an Air Florida jet taking off for Fort Lauderdale. That crash, very sadly, more than 70 people died. There were some survivors. That also was in January. And after that, of course, procedures were tightened up, and it just seems incredible that something like this could have happened. If it had been 2 civilian aircraft that were coming close together, they have very sophisticated warnings called TCAS, which is a collision avoidance system, which will instruct the pilots to do things, each a different thing, to get them out of danger. Clearly, if you have a military aircraft, in this case a helicopter, that is not going to apply. And most certainly there will be some very, very long and detailed studies about this. But for the moment, what a desperate tragedy for those on board, their loved ones. And well, we now have 3 fatal crashes in the past 5 weeks. You'll recall there was the crash of the Azerbaijan Airlines aircraft, which was effectively shot down by the Russians and limped across the Caspian Sea. After that, we had the Korean jet, which ran off the runway. It basically crash-landed without any undercarriage. And now we have this terrible tragedy. And, of course, aviation in the United States is incredibly safe. There are so many safety measures put in, and we will simply have to wait and see what happened with this. But, of course, these 2, this helicopter and the aircraft, should not have been anywhere near each other. And whatever was happening on the training mission, it seems extraordinary that it could be taking place anywhere near the approach to such a busy airport.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of questions still on this. Simon, for now, thanks very much indeed.
It's absolutely horrific, isn't it? We heard from a man at the top, Haman Raza, who was waiting for his wife at Reagan National Airport, and she had just texted him saying, "I'll be landing in 20 minutes' time." And there will be families waiting there, won't there, at
Yeah.
Reagan National Airport,
Yeah.
hoping that their loved ones are pulled from that river.
Whether
I can't even imagine what they're going through.
No, whether it's a survivable incident, we don't know at this stage, and we don't know what is going on with that military helicopter. There's imagery showing it just heading straight into the plane. Now, how that can happen with all the technology on these aircraft, it's very hard to say, but a full investigation will clearly be underway. The focus right now on trying to find anyone in that water. So it's a rescue and recovery effort. About 19 bodies have been recovered so far, 67 on the plane, 3 on the helicopter. So a lot of people still to find, and of course everyone hoping and praying that there are some survivors from this. We'll keep you fully across it, of course, throughout the course of breakfast this morning.
Now, at 18 minutes past 6, let's take a look at the weather with Hope Krizik.